scenes from the movie is pretty well much right up at the beginning, the Kobayashi Maru sequence.
Yes.
I think it's a pretty famous sequence, and I think you're pretty wonderful in it. Do you remember doing that?
I loved doing that because I too would have been furious if I was put in that situation. Because let's think about it. You do your very best, and it's a no-win scenario. And that would be hard for a person who was just an earthling to comprehend, let alone someone who's sort of like just a walking IQ. So I don't think it computed to her, that's the Vulcan part, you know, it just didn't compute to her that someone would be a liar, and that would be your test. And that was very real to me. You know, I think anytime as an actor you can think of how you would have also really felt in that. That can help you out, and I would have felt the same way she felt. I still feel that way. I think it was really mean, and I don't like it.
But not an unexpected Captain Kirk move, though. Or Admiral.
No, it was. Well, I don't know if it's unexpected, but it's stupid. Like, why are you putting her through this?
You're Vulcan, so naturally it seems stupid and illogical to you.
It does. Well, I still don't know I don't know what the point of it was, still.
And speaking of Kirk, what was your takeaway about Bill Shatner? How did you two guys get on? How was that interaction?
I think we got on pretty well. I think he thought I was a bit of a doofus, which I was. You know, he's very professional. Spock's, everybody in that is like a well-oiled machine, and they're all very professional. And you know, he could probably tell sometimes I wasn't as prepared as I should be, because as grateful and thankful as I was for getting a role in a movie, I was also a bit of an irresponsible twit. So, you know, they always knew their lines perfectly, and sometimes I'd come in and knew them, and sometimes I didn't, and most people don't know this, that's why I guess I'm talking about this. You know, I mean, I did do some drinking while I was... Once I found out I was going to be in a movie, I was pretty impressed. You know? So I wanted to go out, and people would, it was the first time in my life that someone would say, well, what do you do? You know, in California, in Los Angeles, everybody's going to be an actor. So you don't want to say, oh, I'm going to be an actor. Like, take a number. So it was the first time in my life where someone would say, well, what are you doing? I'm an actor. Well, what are you working on? Star Trek 2. And so, you know, I'd go out at night, and then I was a little irresponsible. I'm just saying, I wish I was grateful and responsible. But I was grateful and slightly irresponsible.
Well, you came off great in the film. That's all I know. We
Thank
loved
you
in the film. We loved you. I mean, I still have a crush on you now. I had a real crush on the character. It was really fantastic. So beautiful.
Thank you.
Forgive me for asking, and maybe some people know the answer to this question, but why didn't you return to Savick for the next film? Is there a...
You know, I don't really know the answer. I don't know the answer to that. I would say that I was offered the third one, but it was a very... I don't know how you would really say it. It was... Well, I know how you say it in Kansas. You say it was a half-assed offer. You see?
Financial or the gig?
Both. It was like, look, her character's a lot bigger. She's going to be a lot more important character in the movie, and we'd like to pay her less than we paid her for the first one. And it was like, so I queried it, and I said, how does that make any sense?
Right.
And then it was like, okay, we get it. You don't want to do it. And it was sort of a, but that's not really how you negotiate. You know, you negotiate like, oh, I want double the money. And they go, no. And you go, okay, then I'm not going to do it. And they go, okay, we'll give you triple. And we'll give you half the... whatever, and then you say no, and then when you know they're going to fire you and not, they're not going to use you, you go, all right, and you cave in. But it never got
They didn't really engage you in the negotiation.
It wasn't, and so it made me think they don't really want me in the third one. Now, since then I've heard other people speak. I even heard Leonard Nimoy say, no, we really wanted her in it. But that just sort of didn't make sense. So that still remains a bit of a mystery.
I mean, these things do happen in the business. I mean, it's not that unheard of. And in no way am I diminishing Robin Curtis's work, because she's a wonderful lady and a talented actress in her own right. But I just have to say that I would have loved to have seen you continue as Savick.
Thank you. I would have loved to see me continue as Savick too.
It's just one of those things, you know. But
it's one of those weird things. It's an anomaly of my career, and I still don't really... You don't always know the real reason for certain things. You know,
Oh, I think that
unfortunately.
there are forces at work in our lives that work in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
And I think that we receive a lot of blessings in manners that we don't recognize as blessings, but as our timeline progresses, they reveal themselves to be things that pushed us in the right direction. And you
I agree.
had such an amazing career. I'm gonna have a lot of people with questions. Just a touch on a couple of different things that you did.
Okay.
Working with Woody Allen.
Yes.
What was that like?
Well, my dream was always to do a Woody Allen movie.
You know.
So,
What year was that?
trying
to remember.
98, 99.
Deconstructing Harry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was great because, you know, when you have that kind of a dream that, oh, I'd love to be in a Woody Allen movie.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you know, and that meeting was very odd because I was in New York and I went into the room and sat down, the drapes were all pulled, the room was pretty dark, he was sitting over here. And he said something like, okay, well, I'm glad you came in. And then I left. And there wasn't chit-chat, and I didn't read for the movie. And then I went out of the office with my tail between my legs, you know, walking back to my hotel like this. And I walked in the hotel door, and the phone rang and said, yeah, Woody wants you for the movie. I'm like, why?
Yeah, I mean, it's...
What? So I was a little bit like that, but it was great.
It was great.
Yeah, I mean, he's a great director. He does things very differently. One thing that I found really interesting was when you're shooting a movie, in a normal movie, and it's a day where it's rainy and overcast, that could be a day that you would collect on the insurance and not have to shoot that day. And Woody only if he has a sun day, if it's real sunny out and bright, that's his rain day. Yeah.
Well, but that's kind of the nature of his neurosis, if you want to call it that, sort of.
Yeah, well, you know, he likes that overcast look of fall. That's why he always shoots in the fall.
Yeah.
And I understand why, but that was just something I found unusual. And then one thing that I found, you know, I said to him, do you care if there was one scene there, and I go, do you care if I improvise a little bit? And he goes, well, if you're funny, I don't care. But as I told an actress one time, you know, you're not very funny and you might as well, is it called the E-rail?
Yeah.
In other words, get on the train and get out of town.
Yeah.
So I was a little like, ooh, oh, I hope I'm funny.
All right. 4-time Emmy nominee, 1-time Emmy winner for
2.
Cheers! Cheers! You and Ted Danson, what a pair. All right. First of all, how does the gig come apart? How does that happen in the first place?
Well, that was I think my whole career is just a big freak show, if you want to know the truth. Which is fine, because it's all turned out well. But I had done a play called Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. And,
Great play.
Yeah,
Great play.
This was my second champion of my career, very, very famous theater director named Jose Quintero. I hadn't done any theater either, so on my fake resume it said, oh yeah, I've done every play Elizabeth Taylor's done. But she hadn't really done any plays, so I thought maybe she had. So anyway, so I went in to audition for Jose, and I'll never forget this, I had on white leather pants and a white leather jacket, and after I auditioned, he called my agent and he said, okay, she's really scary. Could you ask her to come back tomorrow in a nice dress? And so he goes, she's actually frightening to me. So I came back in a sort of a flowery dress, and I read again. He was champion number 2 for me, because I'd never done theater, and the theater people wanted someone else, and he said, well, he actually said, I won't do the play without her. So anyway, cut to, I'm doing Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and those of you who are familiar with it, it is a drama. It's a Tennessee Williams play, and it is a drama. That said, Jimmy Burrows, the director of Cheers.
The one and only Jim Burrows.
The one and only.
Yep.
And Jeff Greenberg, casting director for Cheers, somehow thought I was really funny in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. And anyway, they called me in to see if I would come and meet with Ted and, you know, do some scenes with him. And so I did. I went to the set of Cheers, and I'd never really seen Cheers. And I think that was a good thing.
Was that on the Paramount lot?
It was.
Right near the Star Trek sets, if I recall.
It was. I love the Paramount lot for a lot of reasons.
You're
Never
home
many of
away
them
from
now.
home.
But I met with Ted, and I thought, the director said, have you watched Cheers? And I said, well, I haven't watched Cheers very much. I thought Ted looked like Eddie Munster. Because he has a very low hairline.
Oh, that's funny.
And I remember when I watched it on TV, I thought, oh no, he looks like Eddie Munster, and he does a good job. So, anyway, so I went in and I read with him, and then they hired me, and then Jimmy Rose said, I go, how do you even know about me? And he said, because I saw you do Maggie on Cat in a Hot Tin Roof, and I thought you were really funny.
Well, ironic, maybe, kind of ironic in the role. I don't know about funny, but ironic.
Yeah.
But, he obviously had you pegged.
Yeah, it was good. It was another fluke of my life.
It was like a 5-6 year run, right? It was huge.
6 years.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was fun. It was the best. It was like going to summer camp every day.
Just one or two takeaways from that. Something amazing that happened, or fun that happened, or a character that you love, or an actor you love working with. Just one or two memories from that.
Well, there were so many stories. Some of them you just can't tell to a big audience.
Those are the ones we want to hear.
Well, I'll tell you one that I love and I don't know. Well, there's two. Okay. George, the first night that we shot, when we shot the first episode that included me.
George went?
George went and John Ratzenberger.
What a pair.
Yeah, and they handed me this big, long box. And this was very sweet. I opened it up and it was a shotgun. And I said, wow, a shotgun. Wow. And then I read the card and it said, if you ever want to get out of here, you're going to have to shoot your way out. So that was sweet. That was sweet. And then my other story that I love, and I don't know why either, but it's somehow made me laugh every time I think about it, is that right before you would shoot the show, there was the guys would all take showers. And Woody Harrelson was always trying to find ways into, like if the girls didn't take showers, because Woody was always trying to find ways into the bathroom with the shower.
So Woody Harrelson was crazy.
He would do all this stuff. Well, he was mischievous. So
he's crazy.
Yes, he is. So Ted was in the shower, and we were sort of all plotting this. And it was before iPhones and the such. So Woody, the door was locked. It also had a new lock on it that he couldn't pick. And so he went up through the ceiling and across and took those slats out, dropped down through and took a picture of Ted. Now, thank God Ted's head was cut off. In the picture, it just showed Ted from here to his knees. We were very impressed, A.
My goodness.
And B, I think that was really good that iPhones and social media didn't exist then.
Oh yeah.
That would have been everywhere. But everybody had their own distinct kind of personality and sense of humor. So it just made it great. It really was like going to camp. Nobody showed up on time. One time we decided that if everybody, when I came in, I was horrified that people weren't on time, and I said, well, I'm going to make a jar. Like, who does this? I'm going to make a jar, and every time someone's late, they're going to put $10 in here. And then every time, and then what we're going to do is we're going to give this money to charity. Well, the guys would just stick like $300 in the jar and just go, we're going to be late for 3 weeks. I had a lot of money. I had like $3,000, but that was just in day 2. Still no one came on time.
All right.